Hey, I hope you're all having a great day today. So, I got something to say about celebrities, people that you think you know, and things like that. Because sometimes we think we know someone because we've seen them on stage, heard their music, or, watched them perform or heard stories about them. But really, the truth is, you don't know who they are until you really have a sit down conversation with them. And that really was the case with me with Jeff Rouse. So, Jeff is known throughout the Seattle music scene for his work with bands like Loaded, Vendetta Red, Fozzy, and many others, including Alien Crime Syndicate, which will be getting back together for a performance this summer in the Seattle area. So watch for that. Now, Jeff, of course, has built an impressive career as a bassist and musician. But what really stuck with me most, aside from that resume that he has, is the person behind that bass and behind the story. Jeff is generally one of the most down to earth people I could have ever hoped to meet. And in this conversation, he really opens up about his journey through the music scene, the music industry, what's been going on in Seattle, the evolution of Seattle's music. He also shares his stories that were really insightful, honest, and sometimes really surprising to me. So I want to say, Jeff, thank you for being so open about your life, your experiences, and your music career. It's been a real pleasure getting to know the person behind the bass guitar, and I'm really grateful that you shared your story with the podcast. Thanks, and I hope all of you really enjoy this too. You are definitely a prominent bass player in Seattle because you've been in with Loaded, with Duff McKagan's Loaded, Alien Crime
Mhm.
Syndicate, with
Mhm.
Cyber Sisters, Vendetta Red,
Yeah.
briefly with Fozzy. You're
Mhm.
also not only a bass player, but you're a singer, you're a lead guitar player, you're an instructor, and
Mhm.
we're going to talk about this later. You're a psychologist, a band psychologist, or so you call yourself that.
Well, there's been moments, I guess that kind of leads back to kind of what we were just talking about. That's kind of as much as being in a band is about how good you play, all those different things. Navigating personalities is always something.
Yeah,
Um, I think any band, whether you've been around for 6 months or 6 years or 60 years, um, the dynamics between members of a band is super important. Sometimes when people are kind of butting heads, sometimes that also brings awesome energy to a stage. I mean, there's plenty of bands that you didn't know if they were going to fight or whatever, all those different things. I've never been in a band like that, but I've always kind of found myself in the middle of that kind of thing, the middle of the personality, and just kind of keeping things cool. Like I said, I've always been kind of Switzerland.
yeah.
It's always been easier for me to exist, and maybe some of that is a little passive aggressiveness, and some of the other things inherent in my personality, my psychology. But yeah, a little bit of psychology goes a long ways. I think if there's not somebody in a band that's like that, um, like I said, there's a lot of that.
Yes, yeah. I've been in a couple of situations where it's been like that. It's either
Hmm.
it's either me and the drummer or me and the singer.
Um, most of the bands I've been in, I mean, maybe inherently because I have been a little bit, I kind of let the chaos kind of form around me and swirl around me instead of, uh, I don't create the chaos, hopefully. Mostly, I learned at a pretty young age of being in a bands, like I said, to really kind of be the best me I can in a band as a bass player, as a whether I have to sing or whatever those things are. I've just been able to kind of keep it cool. Obviously not from that story that you told me about outside the crocodile. Maybe I didn't. I don't know what that was. But uh yeah, it's I've just never a lot of those stereotypes, I'm sure, and there's a lot of those stereotypes inside me, but I've just always been able to kind of stay out of the chaos and just do my job. And I learned that a lot by, when I played with Fozzy and Buck Cherry and some of these other bands where I was hired on to kind of just go out and be a bass player. It wasn't my band. It wasn't something I started. It was something that I was doing to make sure their shows and whatever they were doing be the best you can. And in turn, you just step back, do what you need to do, whether whatever that may be, and also take criticism. Like, hey, maybe you need to step back here, maybe you need to step up here.
Yeah.
Those were really great learning experiences for me. When I started doing that, I had some time, and I didn't, being from Washington, there wasn't a lot of people at 15 whatever years ago, kind of whenever I started taking those kind of gigs, like the hired bass player kind of guy gigs.
Mhm.
I didn't ever think of it that way, but there wasn't a lot of people in Seattle doing that. It's not an epicenter of, in Seattle, you grew up, you were in a band. It was a gang, one for all, till you die, the whole thing. Maybe not being in LA or New York or whatever those things didn't present themselves to a lot of musicians in Seattle. Like, oh, I could just, what, you want to just hire me and I'll just be your bass player and I'll go out on the road and I'll fly out, whatever those things are. I didn't know a lot of people that was doing that. But touring so much, I started to get to know bands, whether it be in hotel lobbies or getting breakfast in the morning at festivals, or, at festivals, there's also, dozens, maybe hundreds of bands sometimes. And the catering is, you'll see anyone from, just any band you can ever think of. So you start to get to know people, meet in the gyms at hotels. Like you'd talk to people in the mornings. And I just started to get to know people. And at a certain point, you get their phone numbers, you start talking. And then maybe there's some kind of casual conversation. Oh, maybe someday if we ever need blah, 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 we'll give you a call. And yeah, give me a call. Here's my number, whatever it is. When those first phone calls came in, I'm like, God, I had never done something like that before. I think, I got a call from Buck Cherry. Maybe it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday of some week. And their bass player, Kelly, who's an incredible bass player, was dealing with some health issues. And they're like, we're on tour and we need you here by Friday in New York. And I had heard that band and we'd played with them a bunch. And so I had to make up my mind that night. And then I had a day and a half to learn an hour and a half worth of music. And then I just jumped out, no rehearsals, jumped out, started a tour. And it was a test. Like, oh, can I, I'm never afraid to do stuff like that, but I had never quite done something like that.
Mhm.
And it opened up a whole thing for me for a lot of years. And it was awesome. It was, so great.
Let me ask you, as far as that went, and like you said, you had to learn, 60 plus 90 minutes worth of music in
Mhm.
in a day and a half.
Yeah.
How did you go about learning this stuff? Like you said, you've been on the road or you've opened shows for them, so you're familiar with the
Yeah.
music kind of in the
Sure.
back of your head. But did you
Yeah.
go through tablatures? Do you read music, or did you just listen and play by ear and go, you know what? I'm going to go off the root note. I can hear what the guitar is doing. I'm going to play it. I'm going to be as close as I can.
I think it's a little bit of all of that. I've always, even let me back this up a little bit. When I was a kid, I would read books, homework. You'd have to read books for homework or whatever. And no matter how hard I could not retain information. Now, being older, I can see what kind of the learning disabilities those are. They're not crazy learning disabilities, but even to this day, I could read a few pages of a book with full intent of I got to concentrate, and I can get 3 or 4 pages into a book and not remember one word I just read.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Sucks. And, I would be in tears as a kid trying to do homework, and no matter what I did, it just couldn't retain information like that. But when I started playing music, I kind of figured out pretty quickly that for some reason I could retain that information. Even though I didn't quite know how to play it yet, once I kind of started figuring stuff out, it would come back to me quickly. It's a left brain, right brain thing, I'm sure, and other stuff. Fast forward to having to learn songs. When I first started playing, it was about writing music, playing original music. And, this is, 1990 when I joined my first band. So Seattle was going crazy. It was that kind of thing. I was never in cover bands, but it was all about creating.
Hmm.
But I still could, I could retain the information. So fast forward to like that call from Buck Cherry that night. Here's I got a set list. Here's the songs. So I just, got on my phone on Spotify or Apple Music, whatever it was, and made a playlist of the songs. I get a piece of paper out, I grab my bass, and I just, I listen to the first song, and maybe I'll write the first song. What key is it in? Okay, boom. I'll kind of go through the songs that way, just faking my way through the songs. I won't even stop the song usually. I'll just kind of play along to all the songs. Okay. Finding a few things here and there, maybe make a note after that song. And then try not to get overwhelmed. And some songs will come super fast because it's, nothing crazy, but every band has their curveballs and their quirks and their, whatever that stuff is. You start to learn them pretty quick. But I would find that I would not worry about the small details at first. Just being a bass player, even if there's these quick runs or these little things, I'll kind of ignore that at first and really just try to, bare bones, get through the song, spend a few hours that night, just go through it, take a break. But everywhere I go, I put on my earbuds, listen to the songs for that, whatever I was doing. Slowly, those notes get bigger. Slowly, I don't have to use the notes, but I just wanted to be able to get out there and get through the show. And I knew within conversations of, a couple of the guys in the band leading up to me getting there, I knew they weren't going to bust my ass for missing everybody makes mistakes. I tell that to kids, if I teach them, it doesn't matter. Like, you make mistakes. It's how you handle those mistakes. If you react on stage to a mistake and everybody's, sees it, you're caught. But it's just a rock and roll show. But, that being said, like, I remember that first night going on with Buck Cherry where, we did I think I got there the night before. We had a hotel room, kind of a jam. Like, oh, here's, drummer hitting on the pillow of a couch or whatever. We get ready for the show the next night, and they're like, oh, in the middle of this one song, we all go off stage, and Kelly does this bass solo for 5 minutes or so. Again, Kelly Lemieux, he's such a good bass player. Can play all the stuff, does all this, he's played with Paul Gilbert. He's an amazing. But I'm like, so now we're going to go on stage, and halfway, 3/4 of the way through this set, I'm going to have to play a bass solo. That's something like, it's just not the kind of bass player I was ever. So not only now am I playing the show and really trying to remember, they gave me a set list and I made a couple like, oh, this was in D, I dropped D, whatever. I'll make some notes on my set list. But now all I'm thinking about this whole show is what's going to happen when I get to this spot. So we're getting closer and closer, and a couple songs, and I think, Josh was saying something, and I looked back to Xavier, the drummer. I'm like, hey, when we get to that thing, don't leave. Like, when it gets to the breakdown, just give me a 4 count. Just give me a kick drum. Doom, 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 doom. I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to go out there and impress a few thousand people with my bass gymnastics. But what I can do is get some crowd participation, get them clapping, do some things, kind of get a groove going, get people's butt moving. And that's exactly what I did. I think the song it was B or something. And, you get the crowd, whatever it was. And I remember seeing the guys on the side of the stage like, wow, that, you just didn't know what it was going to be. The great thing about that situation is I have enough confidence to know I can do that. Over the next few nights, it became that, like, all of a sudden now Keith would come out in the middle of that, and we'd start this jam and we'd do this thing. By the end, by the end of that tour, it turned into a whole other thing, which was super fun. I think maybe it gave a little freshness to them. I guess maybe the point of all this stuff is you just have to kind of trust yourself. I trust myself when it comes to that stuff. And like I said, some nights I would make, those first few nights, I would make a mistake. And then after the show, you'd be on the bus and you sit and like, oh yeah, that one part. Yeah, I heard that. Like, this is what you should probably, do this. This is how we've been doing it live. That's another thing, is when you learn stuff off of a record and you jump out with the band, things change.
Yes.
They do. And as they're not, they're worried about if they can get through this tour, get through the show. This guy, we know we like him. He's cool. It's going to be this thing, but how's it going to work? And you're not thinking about these little tiny things that happen during a show that you're going to remind somebody of. So every night it's just like, keep your head. And when I would be out on tour with bands like that, but the Buck Cherry guys, for example, they're sober guys. Um, I'm a sober guy now. Even through my moments of chaos when I was younger or whatever, once I started to tour with people, I knew if I was out on tour, I wasn't going to drink. In Loaded, we didn't really do any of that stuff either. But my job was going to be to keep myself together and be the best person. The best bass player I could be for that band. So I wasn't drinking or smoking weed or doing any of that stuff. Trying to eat good, trying to get to the gym during the day, just keep your head together and be focused. At that point, I didn't have family at home either. So there was no other worries other than I had a dog that would hang out with my parents, but there was nothing for me to worry about at home. So that made that pressure a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a different thing today for me. But back then it was just, tunnel vision. I had rock and roll tunnel vision whole life, much to the, you know, you know, suffered relationships, suffered all kinds of things. But to me, for good or for bad, music was kind of the only thing that I was really focused on all the time. I always
Yeah.
had a job when I came home. I'd come home the next morning, I'd go to work. Always had a job. Yeah, that was a real long answer to your question.
Yeah. But it was a great answer and great story.
But point being is, I think everybody learns things differently, and everybody, there's so much YouTube content now of like Drumeo, these drummers coming in and never hearing a song, and watching. Everybody has a different process, and it's fascinating. I've been lucky that in the creative musical part of my brain, I've been lucky to have that.
I got to comment on that because as far as playing bass, I play a little bit of bass, and I'm not a flashy showman. And in fact, I was better 20 plus years ago at playing bass than I am now. Go figure. I don't know why, but the one thing, and I heard it from another bass player, and this is what I end up doing. If I have to learn something quick and play, slide into the note. I've got 4 strings. I'll slide into it. And if I hear it, it's right there, lock in. And then by the time we do that, it's time to leave and go to the next. And I think even talking to Billy King, he said, don't worry about it. Slide into it and get out. You'll find it.
Dude, yeah, that guy. Yeah, that was a great episode, by the way. He's amazing, but it's true. There's all these different things. You find your way. So true.
Yeah. I got to ask you because, we're all getting older and we still play. What is it about playing, or what is it about the music that keeps you going? I'm going to just come right out and say it. Is it still like you kind of mentioned, is it that early dream of this is it? This is all I want. This is what I'm going to do. I want to be that star. I'm going to make it. You're still fighting for that? Or is it something different because you've got other responsibilities now at home?
So that's a great question. And it's something, if I could be honest, it's something I struggle with. Being a kid, it was, when I was even really little, I'd have daydreams. Maybe that was because of watching the Osmonds, and I'm going to date myself, or the Jackson 5, or the Bay City Rollers in the 70s. Things when I was really young that I thought was like sparked me, like, whoa, what are they doing? Like I think I want to do that. And I would have daydreams, and I didn't know what it was, but I would have daydreams of walking on a stage. Or during Christmas, there's pictures of me when everyone was around on top of the stereo with headphones on, performing. I wasn't performing anything. I just kind of wanted to be the center of attention. I think a lot of musicians, and I've always kind of said this, I was talking about the other things. I was never good at anything until I started figuring out how to to play the bass or the guitar until I started trying to play music, and it felt something that was my own. I tried, I played soccer and baseball, all these different things. It was always kind of one of the worst players on the best team. Just no matter what I did, it just wasn't working. I didn't grow up in a musical family. I grew up in a very supportive family, but there was always music playing, but there was no musicians really. My grandma played, she would play the organ during family and that was great. But once I started playing, there was some kind of, my parents are, again, I didn't come from a broken family. I can see my parents' house from here. They're still married. 58 years.
Wow.
Wonderful. The most amazing people. So supportive. Probably terrified through some of these things. But for some reason, there has always been a little bit of a hole, maybe in my soul or something that is striving for some kind of maybe attention or something. And I'm just being honest. Looking back, there's been something always that was missing in me that I was trying to find. And I was a shy little dorky kid. All these things. Once I started playing in bands, I was getting attention. I could become a character. I could become this other person, this other thing, still me, but this other thing that maybe I was lacking in confidence. Walking down the hall at school or meeting somebody. Obviously now I'm way better at that, but as a young kid, I was just in a shell, saying the wrong things at the right time to try to get attention, just being awkward, being awkward. But as soon as I started playing music, all of a sudden the cool kids liked me even less, but maybe the girls liked me, but I got to play shows and all this different, whatever those things are when you're a teenager. Then, I was lucky enough to join a band and be playing in Seattle in the, from late 80, I was going to shows. I graduated in 87, was in community college, started going to shows, saw Alice in Chains and Mother Love Bone, going to skating rinks and seeing all these bands before they were MTV, whatever, before it blew up. And I found a tribe. I found my tribe. I remember walking into the Skate King in Kent. It's Mother Love Bone, Alice in Chains, Tramp Alley, and Black is Black. Halloween 88, 87. I have a flyer here somewhere. Just, maybe, 400 people, 400, whatever it was. But I walked in going, oh my God. I'd been to arena shows and stuff and it, pot smoke and rock, all the stuff. But when I walked into that Skate King, I was like, these are my people. Yeah. Like this is my tribe, whatever it is. Started playing bands. And then once I started doing that, I was lucky enough, and it was almost this false sense of what it is to be a musician. But all of a sudden I'm playing in a band in the Seattle area, and you're meeting people from around the world. You get a weekend show in Pioneer Square, it's sold out. It didn't matter who was playing anymore. If you were out playing, there was 50 venues you could play, and music was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday through Sunday. There's 3 bands a night at every venue you go. It was, the scene exploded. Like, what an amazing time to become a musician. Like, regardless of all that, and like, looking back, it's unbelievable. At the time, it just felt kind of, you knew it was exciting, but that's a scene that doesn't happen. We all know this now, but, my first goal was I got to be in a band and write music. Oh my God, I got to play a show. Oh my God, we need to put out a cassette. We should make a fanzine. Wow, we can make a single. And then it was, well, how can we get to open for a bigger band? And then it turns into, how do we get a record deal? Then how do we every time I would set my goal to something, it was never enough. I think, that's just what you do. It's this thing, and it builds and it builds and it builds. And I just never would give up. And I'd put myself in the positions like we were talking about where one, you want to become indispensable. You want to be that person that in a band that you feel like maybe the band wouldn't be able to exist. I'm not saying that's what happens in your head. That's what you want to be.
Right. Yeah.
Um, um, uh, and like I said, it was the one thing that I was good at. It made me feel more like a complete person. Um, and it got stuff out of me writing music and, doing all that at the end of the day, I was content. But that hole doesn't go away.
Right. Honestly,
You know,
it's hearing what you're saying really resonates with me personally, and I'm sure with a lot of other musicians out there. And I've never professed, confessed, or acknowledged this, but everything that you're saying, I'm now really realizing, you know what Jeff was saying is what I felt, what I was. That was me. That was little me.
hmm
So
we're babies, and like I said, the thing looking back at those moments in my life and those feelings and those things that I had, like a lot of people, man, like I said, I was blessed. I have a wonderful family, and I didn't suffer trauma like people do. Like there's people my friends and people I love and people you hear about that, mental health issues are a thing. And, when we were young, it wasn't something you'd really talked about. You didn't really, it just wasn't something. You dealt with it.
yeah, totally different times.
It's at different times. But um, it took me a long time to realize that it just felt like whatever was the next thing was never really felt like enough. I
Hmm.
guess maybe. I mean, at the time it did, but I was always hoping for the next thing. I was always realistic. When things didn't work, was never devastated. I never wanted to quit. I was also realistic and knowing that, as quick as you can get a record deal, that record deal's gone.
Yeah.
And as quick as you're putting 500 people in a venue, a couple months later, there might be 50. Um, but, it was also the people that I played with, and I learned every person that I played with, every situation I was in, I would learn. I would learn.
I'm glad you're saying that because I want to ask you, what is one lesson that you learned from playing with Duff and Loaded, and not necessarily playing bass, but just that survival instinct or the long term career in music? Was there anything that you learned out of that?
So many things. The first thing that comes to my head when I joined that band, we were going, our first real shows we were playing we were going to Japan. So I had toured, and granted, I'm not a youngster at this point. I'm in my 30s at this point. I've been touring in vans and punk rock and doing all this stuff. I think I had been to the UK one time. So I'd been overseas, but I get this call, I join this band, and our first gigs are in Tokyo at this arena with pyro, all this stuff flying, it was a whole thing. It was so exciting. But we needed to play some warm-up shows. Like these were going to be, we were going to be in Japan for a couple weeks playing some big shows. And we booked a show in Fife at this weird little this place during the week. Wasn't really announced. At this point, Duff had been out of Guns and Roses for a long time. He had went back to school. He's raising his family. Got sober. Super inspiring person to be around. So we had to go do this show. And there was nobody there. There was maybe 15 people there, maybe more, maybe not much. But when we played, that person to my left that was singing, Duff, played like it was Rock in Rio. And I'm not saying he's the energy, I'm not saying he's David Lee Roth and doing kicks and like, hello, Tacoma, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the energy and the thing that he put forward, regardless of what was happening around him, is the same every time. And that could be whether he's jumping up with somebody to play a song. I've seen him do a million things. No matter when he puts on that bass or that guitar, or whatever he's doing and gets on stage, it's the same thing every time. It's not, and that comes from here. Like, I don't think he's trying. I don't think, I know he's not trying to do that. That's who he is. But that was a really great lesson, because we've all been to those things where you're thinking tonight's going to be the best night or whatever, this thing's going to be the best thing, and things don't go as planned. If it was perfect, everybody would be able to do it. It was a great thing to be around. It was an inspiring, positive thing. Yeah.
It's, with you saying that, I can see where that learning from somebody about that, giving 100% of the time, because there are times that I've gone to see local bands, and even I'll call them, I'll use this bad word, has-beens that are playing, where you could tell you're looking at them and you're going, man, they don't even want to be up there. Because they might be looking out, and like you said, they're looking at 30 people, and you could tell on their faces they're going, let's just get this over with. And then to me, I'm going, why did I spend my money? And I don't want to be here now. So
yeah, it's all this being said, being on tour and touring and the things it takes out of your body and your psyche and all these things, it's draining, it's hard, it's amazing. But at the same time, we are all human beings, and every day can't be perfect. I've just been in the craziest situations where you just instantly have to, in the moment, figure it out. I've not always been perfect. I have walked off stage in frustration. There's things that have happened that I wish I could do over, but admitting to yourself when you're wrong is super important. But also, the thing about touring and playing is also there's always tomorrow. But you always want to give people the best experience that they can. You have to play for yourself first. I've always felt like I have to play for myself first. And you create, in a live situation, you create a bond, right? It's an energy. And sometimes that energy's fucked up. And sometimes it's a bad, maybe, whatever it is. But that's also what's great about rock and roll. Some of the best bands in the world were either the worst band you ever saw or the Replacements or something. I played with Tommy Stinson. I've toured with for years. I love him. He's my brother. But the thing about the Replacements was they were notorious, right? They was either the best band you were ever going to see or it was awful. There's a magic to that as well. But with that magic comes expectations, because now people are coming to the show maybe hoping to see the car wreck, or they're not so bummed out if they see the car wreck or the best show of their life. Like either way, they've come for this experience. That's a lot of pressure, I think, for a band. And also could be also so self-destructive if you know that you can go off the deep end on the wrong end of the pool and people will still love you. That's crazy, because now you're inherently have these expectations and you're like, well, it doesn't really kind of matter what happens because who cares? People love us. I'm not saying that's what they did, but I think, I've seen a lot of that.
Well, you remind me of a situation with one band that I played in, and this was one of our first shows, and we were probably halfway through our first set of songs, and somebody yells out, "You guys fucking suck!" And then he goes,
"Yeah,
you can fucking rock."
yeah.
It's just like, yeah, all right, let's keep rocking then. And,
yeah.
To me, they were right. We did suck, but man, we really rocked, and we progressively got better. And there's the band that fucking sucked, but man, they can rock, and people still came. And the venues liked it at that time because they came and those people drank, so they spent money. So
that's it. I've been in those situations many times, and sometimes it's not even because you suck, but maybe you're opening for a band. It's notoriously people have had AC/DC or whatever. Crime Syndicate had asked when the Pixies came back after years to play some shows. We opened up one of I don't remember one or two, whatever it was, one of the first shows. People didn't want to see anybody else that night. They were there to see that band, and that's hey, and I get it. I wanted to see them too, but you got to get out there and do your best. And that crowd wasn't spitting at us or saying we suck, but I remember there was a lot of this,
Yeah.
and we've all. I mean, hey, that's part of it too. That's part of it. It's how you react to those situations. It's such a metaphor for life, really. It's really kind of how you react to those kinds of moments that, define your character.
Yeah. That night we took it all of us took it in stride and just went with
Yeah.
it. There was some bantering going back and forth, but you know what? At the end of the night, they had a good time and we had a great time and we got paid. And that made it that much better for us,
Boom. Yeah, man.
And I've got to ask you again, because you're such a prominent bass player in the Seattle area. If you were to put together, we'll call it the Mount Rushmore of bands in Seattle, what 4 bands would you pick out of Seattle?
4 bands that what do you mean by this?
Yeah, that you hold up to a really good standard, that they were really good. Basically, who makes the cut and who just missed it. I'll go back and say for me, My Sister's Machine. Love those guys, and they made it my cut, but they didn't quite make it outside of that.
Loved that band. Yeah, absolutely.
All these bands, but they all became something else. But so I was just wondering, any early bands like that, or any?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that when I saw Mother Love Bone, that initial. Well, so I saw Alice in Chains and Mother Love Bone. That kind of first. I mean, it wasn't my first show, but it was the first kind of local. I had been to skating rink shows in Puyallup, and I'd been to some other stuff. I saw like TKO and like Perennial and some like these late 70s, early 80s bands at skating rinks, and they were super great. But when I walked into that Skate King and saw Alice in Chains and Mother Love Bone, never seeing those 2 bands before, nor hearing them, and what I experienced changed my life.
Okay.
Those 2 bands, I mean, Lane and Andrew Wood, there's just so many different things. I just I hadn't heard those voices. I mean, the bands were great. I mean, everybody in the bands were amazing, but those 2 guys, I couldn't believe, even then, you just couldn't believe it. And I didn't miss a show for a week. That night you get flyers and you go to the next show. Andrew Wood was something that was familiar. I liked David Bowie. I liked Queen. I liked Van Halen. I liked Hanoi Rocks. There's so many different things that I liked. And Andrew Wood kind of was all of that. And Sam Kinison. He was funny, but he said, it was just this thing. I'm I recognized it was so familiar, but it was so new. And I'm and the songs were so cool. And Lane, same thing. Just his presence and his voice. And you just couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it. It was amazing. So those 2 bands, if we're just talking about this, things that influenced me and things that I saw I love so much different music. But if we're talking about the 4, let me think.
You can cut it down to 2 or 3. You've mentioned 2.
Well, I remember seeing there was this band called Louder Milk. There were these. I heard about this band called Louder Milk. They were from the Tri-Cities, and I heard a couple songs because a drummer in Alien Crime Syndicate, Nabil, owned Sonic Boom record store. He was always plugged in. I was always hearing. I just remember him saying, "We got to go to the show at the Crocodile." So it was during the week. Maybe we went. And there was these 4, they weren't tall guys. They were young, maybe, I don't even know how old they were at that point, 18, 19. They all kind of had what I called at the time like Vulcan haircuts, kind of emo. Like I didn't know what that was. And it was one of the most amazing bands. Still to this day, it's that band. If anybody has never heard Loudermilk, they're amazing. One of the greatest bands. And I think they got a record deal and they were out playing for a while. It just didn't work. You never can tell what's going to work. They were amazing. And just all the, man, there was some, Nirvana, Soundgarden, all these bands are obviously amazing.
Yeah.
But, growing up and playing at the time, it was just like, it's kind of just over, like not over it. I don't know how to respectfully say, like, you just get, it was part of everything every day was all of this stuff. So after a while, it's just like when you hear something so much, you're just like, I'm kind of done with it. You know what I mean? Like, but that being said, Chris Cornell is one of the best singers ever. Ever. And those songs, listening to those songs, what an awful thing. And I had down the years, I got to play with, I've played with Chris in his basement playing Black Sabbath songs. You know what I mean? Like over the years, who would have known? I would have known these people and played with them and done shows, whatever, and just played parties and hung out,
Yeah.
That's where the true, I don't know. I see at my age now, I just, the overall picture of all this stuff is skewed a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw one thing out there in case people are
Mad Season. Hold on, real quick. Mad Season.
Mad Season. Yes.
Mad Season.
I totally forgot about that, but yes.
Lanigan and just the whole. I didn't mean to cut you off. Don't forget what you were going to say, but that band, like that was something.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I was going to throw out a name of a band that was local that I really liked, and they were here, then they were gone, and I don't know if people can remember who they were, but Cameron Vale.
I remember that band.
Todd was a great guitar player. That band was really good, and kind of then and gone. So
yeah. There's a lot of. Man, we were around to see. There's so many bands in there. Success is a weird thing.
Well, we had a lot of places to play.
Yeah, we did.
Again, not so much now. It's at least not in the Seattle area that we're talking about. So, so what if a talented 20-year-old bass player, guitar player, musician came up to you and asked you and said, Jeff, how do I build this sustainable career today? What kind of advice can you give me, Jeff? I want to be a musician.
Oh, God. I get that all the time. I teach. Friends of mine opened the School of Rock in Issaquah on Mondays. I have to go there in a bit, actually teach some kids. What a great resource for kids, by the way. But the main answer is I don't fucking know anymore, really. But the easy answer is if you believe if you believe in what you're doing, you're going to connect with somebody. If it's honest, if it's real, somebody will like it. Is that somebody going to be 10 people or 10,000? I don't know. Write music. At this point, if you're just learning how to write, I don't want to say steal things, but you wear your influences on your sleeve. It'll become inherently part of who you are. And the only way to exercise those writing demons and stuff is to write. Yeah, that might sound like this, but eventually you're going to find your voice. Your voice might be keyboard, could be drum, whatever your musical voice is, exercise it. We're in a different thing. I think, you have to put out content. I'm not good at that anymore. It's not something I even really entertain much anymore. You got to put stuff out. People need to know what you're doing and do that stuff. It's a different world. How to keep people's attention and I don't even have TikTok or anything like that. But, content, 20-second blips, this, that, it's a weird thing. And hey, but that's okay. People have found their way through that. And things always change. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's a young man's game a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know, I just feel like being true to yourself, you're always going to connect with somebody. And also, be patient and don't, I mean, it's such a cliche thing, but just don't give up. I mean, if you want to be a musician, be a musician. Being a musician doesn't mean selling this amount of records or being this or that or this many likes or anything. Being a musician is extra, I mean, is that thing. You know, it's the thing that I found.
Yeah, that's really
That's
good
going to
advice.
last. I mean, just don't give up because, you know, whatever. A lot of people give up after they've done it for 10 or something years. And that's, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And if it's not connecting with you anymore, it's better not to do it than put out shit that's like you're just feeling like people are going to like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, just because, you know, or what, I don't know. I don't know if people, you know, but just, you know, the easiest thing is not, and just keep finding your tribe, keep finding people. A career is a long thing. I would have never thought I'd, you know, going back to the very first question of like, I don't have the same drive that I have now that I did then to do it. I still write songs I mean, I'm constantly writing. I'm always writing. I love it. Especially with technology now, it's like I have sitting in front of me here. This is where I make my records, you know, being able to do that, like where I want to do it is the best. You know,
Mhm.
it's so fun. But I really just write the kind of music that it's fun for me, you know. I'll put it, you know, and that's the great thing about the world we live in now too, is that you can do this and then get it to somebody the same day. You
Right.
can post it, you can do it, and you know, you can get that immediate thing, which is super cool. Um, but I don't have that need. This is going back a little bit too. I've dealt with the thing. There's a part of me sometimes I have this inherent guilt that I'm not living up to the expectations that I had 30 years ago. Like, do I feel guilty? Like I'm not like forever. I was just, you know, on the road. I was doing this. Like there's sometimes a little bit of guilt that I'm not doing that. That's not to anybody else, but this thing, like it sneaks up every once in a while. This little, like, hey, do you need attention? Do you need whatever it is?
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's okay. And that's okay too. It's just a funny place to be. It's a funny place to be sometimes. And with no regrets. My life is wonderful. But there's those things.
I 100% know what you're talking about, and I know others do. I want to be respectful of your time because, like you said, you've got to go do some teaching.
Yeah.
There's stuff that we haven't even hit on. The recording, your recording career, being in and out of the studios, the actual touring. I want to talk about, you know, music today and AI and things like that. But again, those would take up.
I got a little bit more. We have a little bit more time, but yeah.
Okay, well, you just say, Chuck, I'm done. I got to go. Then,
Okay.
and I'll respect that. So, then, all right. With that being said, then let's just grab that devil right now, the AI thing and AI music, because you hear initially people saying it's bad, it's going to ruin music, and now you hear that producers and other musicians are really actually using it. And you did use that word, kind of like an influence. It's okay, I think, to get ideas from, well, I'll put it this way. People who say that AI is copying everything musically, well, I have to say it depends on how you use it. Because I get influenced by music that I hear. You know, I'm influenced by how Jeff plays the bass. It influences the way I play, how Duff plays or whoever, how Gene plays. But I'm not ripping them off. It's just I'm soaking in that information. How do you view AI and music these days? The devil?
No. I don't. It's how do I want to say? I've played around with it a little bit. It's been helpful for a couple things where there's some apps you can use to help pull, like learning something. You can put in a song and pull out. Now you can just put in a song and pull out the bass track. And then you can pull out the bass track and the drums. Like learning, like if you need to work on something really fast, you have an AI app, boom, put a song in, it'll take everything away so you can just hear the bass line, and that's pretty genius. There's some other apps too that when they came out, I played around with. Like I could throw in an old demo of something that I have and throw it in AI, and it'll give me, I can't figure out a bridge. You can throw stuff in and you can hear what all this stuff. Cool. That's cool. I get it. I've always like to me, like being able to do the creating stuff myself. That's why I chose this life. It's because I just don't. I mean, AI stuff. I use AI for other stuff, not music related. That is super helpful. Worrisome, yeah. It's weird. I think we need to be careful, but I don't, like I've heard, in the US, I've heard, and I could be wrong, but China, some of these other countries are 10 years ahead of us in all this stuff already. So what we're seeing in AI, well, I think, people are playing catch up a little bit, to what we maybe don't know. And I don't know what that stuff is exactly. It's all encompassing. So I think, being trepidatious and being a little worrisome about that is a natural reaction. When it comes to music, I mean, I've heard, and just however many thousands of Spotify artists are just AI generated something. That's bullshit. Like, what's the point? I guess, but what people like, you're asking a musician, right? So that's how I feel about it. But as a listener, it's hard to separate yourself if you're just a listener that likes to put on a playlist on Spotify while you're driving every day, and you don't necessarily care who it is. You just want to hear a great song. I get it. But as a musician, I don't, I've played around with AI. We've just played around with it a little bit and laughed about it. Hey, make this song sound like Garth Brooks. And you put it in and you laugh oh my God, that's amazing. That's hilarious. That's about as far as it's gone with me. But I do understand that, maybe for your podcast or something, you just need quickly a theme song. And that could be 10 seconds of something.
Right.
I get people do that. To me, that doesn't I kind of get it. Okay, it sounds great. You don't, we're all working within limited budgets. We're not rich people, and having some, I know you're a musician, but maybe a different whatever it is, you need a song for your YouTube channel or your podcast, and you're not a musician, and you can go in and within 30 seconds have a 15-second killer theme song by putting in some prompts. That just saved you thousands of dollars.
And countless hours of trying to put it together. Even if you are a musician.
So I kind of get it. It's a bummer, but I get it.
Yeah. I hear you on that. What really drives me crazy about that stuff is whether you're a musician or not a musician, or you claim you're a musician, but you use AI 100% and you call it your band. Here's my music. To me, that's bullshit. It's
yeah,
you typed in, I want to sound like whoever, Judas Priest. And you go, oh, I just created a song. No, you didn't. To me, using that AI is, you got to play there's got to be some human elements. You got to play it. You got to put it in. Then you go, oh, shit. Okay, I got to change it, bring it out, pull the stems, re-record your bass part or whatever it is, and do that. Because if I can't program drums worth crap. Never have been able to. I can't do it. Hey, I can do this, but I can't program it. So I'll use it to have drums.
Yeah, I mean, I write with some drum. So yes, I agree with everything that you said. And it's funny how quickly things progress and what people think are taboo. And the Gemini affair stuff that I write, all that stuff comes from me first. Mm-hmm. Yes, we use real drums on stuff, but there's a lot of great Superior Drummer. There's a lot of stuff you can use, plugins and stuff to help create. You could play a bass and a guitar part and then plug in some drum software that will play along, like what the drum what it feels like is an appropriate drum beat, and then you can tweak it a little bit or whatever it is. 10 years ago, that people were saying that was unacceptable. I mean, not saying, but like a tool to help your creativity. If you're using it as a tool to progress your creativity, I get it. So things change pretty quickly. This AI thing kind of is now kind of a center of discussion, and I get it. But I don't know. If nobody I know is really trying to fool anybody by saying this AI thing is their song or their band. And I'm sure maybe I've been fooled. I don't know. It's just not something. There's no soul or heart to it yet. I don't know if there ever will be. I'm not sure. I want to hear little mistakes.
Yeah, the imperfections are perfect.
To me,
it's human.
Cheers. Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as, let's get away from the AI thing and let's go really into the studio and recording. And like you said, you've got your studio there. Is that a saving grace, being able to record at home now and create your music? Does it still allow you to be as creative, or is it allowing you to be more creative rather than going to a studio? Because studios used to cost and still do cost so much money. But what's that difference of playing in the studio versus recording at home?
I mean, most studios have better gear than I. I mean, I have some great stuff. There is an energy and an urgency to being in a studio that you can't duplicate. Like you said, it costs money. There's people there expecting you to get. I've been in the studio where you nail it, and there's times where you don't, and it's so frustrating because you're looking at your watch or the clock on the wall, and you got to get it. And but there's something about that energy and that thing of like, it's the fun. Like being in a recording studio is the funnest thing in the world. It's so fun. It's the funnest. Being able to do it on my own is not worry about that stuff and create what I want to create in a timely manner that works for me. Like the Gemini Affair stuff that I started was because I was always doing that, and I had songs that just didn't really. I was wearing more on my sleeve than it was for the other projects that I was involved with. Maybe those, certain things that I just just didn't work, but I still liked it. Loops and keyboards, and I grew up. I love The Cure, and I love there's just so many other things that I loved, that were a part of who I am that I just never got to explore. So having the stuff to record that stuff and learn on my own and try ideas, and play all the instruments and do all the stuff was super rewarding on a personal level. Thinking when that started, I was just going to maybe I'll just put it on Bandcamp or something. Or maybe I'll just put it on my Facebook page. And if somebody wants to listen to it, they will. But then all of a sudden I got this group of songs together. And with a little bit of encouragement, kind of turned it into something a little bit more than that. But with the intention that it's still mine. My buddy Keith Ash, and he is the bass player in that band and kind of my confidant and co-produces and helps me through all this stuff. He's been the most amazing partner in this because I also needed another ear. So, and Don Gunn too. Keith and Don and myself are kind of the three-headed monster that is the Gemini Affair stuff. Comes from me and comes from here, but it filters through. I need those filters a little bit. So it's been the best thing ever. It's so fun. It's like Legos. It's like Tetris. Being a little kid, it's like I could put these pieces together and look at it made of Godzilla, or whatever it is. To me, I'll never get over that I can just make music. Like when I'm done, maybe I'll just, if my son comes in and he's like, oh, that's cool. To me, I won. I just that was so cool. He just thought that was cool. Or my wife, she's like, what's that? She's like, oh, that piece. Can you send me that piece? I want to use it for a ringtone on my phone. I can't get it out of my head. I'm winning. That's awesome. I'm, and if I could put it out there in the world and if people like it, that's great. But it came from here. I have all this stuff I can just kind of grab and do. And something really rewarding about that. But I also am realistic that I don't need to change the world, and I don't need. That's what that particular band has done for me in recording and all these other things. It is something that I can control,
Mm-hmm.
and I can pick and choose how I want to use that music. And if I don't, if I don't want to release, there's just no expectations. And after playing for so long, and it was really rewarding, but there's nothing better with standing with those other people in your band, in a room, being loud, the energy, creative back and forth, getting into a studio, looking at each other, headphones on. Okay, we're rolling. Boom. Like that, like nothing matches that. I don't get that here. So, it's two different things. And I love it all.
Yeah, I see where that's a band, and those are your bandmates, and it's so different than what I see with a lot of recording artists now, where it's one person, but they hired musicians to play. So that to me is a little bit different. Sure, I could record some stuff at home. It's going to be the same kind of the feel, the energy. Just send it off, and then the band will do their recording. But I think, like you said, it's so different if you are in a band and it's 3, 4, 5, 6, however many people in the band. It is totally different. And so my speech on that is, if there's a musician out there listening, if you're in a band and you're debating whether or not to record at home and piece things together or go to a studio, experience the studio experience. Go in there and record with a band.
Yeah. You'll learn. I mean, it's just like so much. It's like when I teach kids how to play. You get a lot of great, there's a lot of resources on YouTube. Like, okay, that's great. But then the one-on-one experience with somebody else, you learn faster. You'll learn 5 times as fast in a room with somebody than you will trying to look at your screen and do it. Now, once you get to that point where you can play, you're going to be, if you could find a few other people, even if you're 10 years old, 12 years old, put a 12-year-old drummer and a bass player and whatever, they're going to get better so much faster, even that way. Having to listen and play with other people, you're going to get better so much faster, and you're going to learn so much more. You might hear, it's just playing with other people. If you want to play an instrument, play with other people. I understand the writing part and the creative part. There's room for all of that, but your musical experience is going to be so much better with the energy of another person near you,
100%.
All of that.
I got to ask you then, all right, so the internet is here. So we get to we experience and see things immediately, or it's always there. But how is it that there are 8-year-olds now that can freaking play like there's no tomorrow? I don't get it.
It's a funny thing. I think that's always happened. I think we just live in a world now where we see everything in real time. There's Michael Jackson. There is, Prince. I mean, I guess Prince wasn't a child. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. There's always, Joe Bonamassa.
That's right.
There's always been that, there's always been these inherent, wherever that comes from, whatever you believe in, whatever it is, there's somebody that's touched quickly at a young age, and people will never know how that works. But we just live in a world now where you can, oh my God, my son just did this thing. 5 minutes later, it's on the internet. It's this whole thing. So we're just, we're experiencing life in real time now, where I think that's always been around. I don't think there's any difference. But I just think
those 4-year-old Chinese kids with hands that are only this big playing a full-size bass or guitar. It's like,
it's really weird. It's but it's like I get sucked down those rabbit holes watching that, and but also sometimes you'll see just like anything, man, you got to kind of really have, there's a lot of fake shit out there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are doing, I mean, if we're talking about kids, whatever, but AI, whatever it is, I've seen, there's big influencers playing guitar and doing this stuff, and they can spend a week trying to get a 10-second part down. And maybe what they'll do is they'll play it at a slower speed
Mhm.
and then post it with 20 beats per minute faster, so it looks like they're playing that fast. But when they recorded it, they had a week to figure it out. They slowed it, what all these different things. You got to be careful. There's there's a lot of fakery, little trickery.
Yes, there is. And if you YouTube music channels have brought that up and have caught some musicians doing that. So
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Hey, outside of music,
Mhm.
what are your fun things, hobbies, influences, your muse? What is it that you do as a regular guy? Because you're so deeply into music. Because teacher,
Well,
you
I
work
work at the bass shop, so I've always had a job. I'm fixing instruments, selling instruments. I'm teaching music. I'm playing 6 days a week. So when I'm home, like things, I got a wonderful family. We got a couple cats, an old dog, a big yard. I got to keep the yard up. I got to, yesterday I fixed the deck and mowed the yard and planted pumpkins and did all this stuff. What I really love now is just being domestic, normal. I'm not normal. I'm never going to be normal. But just like not having that thing we started. It'll be, maybe this is the best way to end cap this, what we've done today. What I found is that it's okay not to be that person thought I was expected to be. I can be an amazing stepdad. I can barbecue up a kick-ass dinner. I can go mow the yard. I can spend time with my parents. I can, just all these things that I didn't have. I mean, I always had my parents, but having having my family and doing these things fill up that hole that we've started off with.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the bottom of it now. It's not this endless hole. It's like, okay, I am more than that. I'm me. I get to be the best person I can be for the people that I love. And that's okay. That's enough. It's okay if that's enough. And what are the hobbies? Whatever. I don't have. I mean, music is still kind of always will be my hobby. In those moments, I'm still in here writing music. I'd much rather do that than paint or something. You know what I mean? Hobbies.
It's always going to be part of your life, no matter what.
No matter what. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of that thing. But being okay with myself in a situation where I'm not that person all the time was something I had to really find and let it just like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. I'll just do this thing. Whatever that is today, going to the urgent care this morning, like, whatever that stuff is, that's important. When I'm gone, I want to be more remembered for being a great stepdad and a son and a brother and a friend than a bass player.
That's great.
That's just the truth. That's just, and that's that guilt we were talking about a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's that guilt. I spent my whole life thinking that was important. And it is. It's important, but it doesn't define me. And that's okay. I think maybe that's the best advice I could give to any kid, really.
Any kid or any
you,
adult.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
us adults sometimes are hard to get through to, but yeah, yeah. Lead with compassion and be kind to people and be kind to yourself, and that's the hardest part, is to find the time. I was always a people pleaser. That was that psychologist thing that you said. That a lot of times when you're looking out for everybody else, you forget to look out for yourself, and that creates, for me, it created some, mental health, just stuff that I wasn't really letting out because I was always, I got to keep this together. I got to make sure everybody's okay. This tour is going, whatever it is. Was I okay? I was okay, but sometimes you need somebody to go, "Hey, are you okay?" Because you're always the one, and when you're looking for that, you're going to be disappointed because you're always like, "Oh, how come nobody?" It's a thing. It's a thing. Um, just be okay, and seek out help if you need it. Talk to people. Talk to your friends. Do things. Don't hold it in.
Absolutely. I've got to say, Jeff, and don't take this wrong, but you are far more humble than I don't want to say expected, but really realize. Again, we don't know each other on a friend level or anything like that, but you are a very humble, likable person, honest. So,
Well, thank you.
It's really come across, at least to me. I feel that. So,
Yeah.
I
Well, yeah. Hey, man, I've had my narcissistic moments through all these years. You know what I mean? And a lot of them that just, you wish you could, that's just the thing.
Well,
thank you for saying that.
If I could rub a genie lamp, and I don't want to make you go, oh man, I didn't really want to be that. But if I could rub a genie's lamp and make a wish, I would wish that success that you dreamed of in music beyond what you have already accomplished, whatever that is. Because like you said, at least for me too, sometimes I battle. This is good enough. I like this. But then there are other times I go to sleep and I dream. I still dream of,
Sure.
what I dreamt as.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's all. I mean, that I'll always have that. Man, I've had more success than I could ever have imagined. I've got, I've seen the world. I've played, all these different things, played with the most beautiful, wonderful people.
Life is rich for you, not money-wise, but rich and everything else.
Hey, man, and there's been moments where the money's been great. All this different stuff, but the stuff, it just doesn't define who you are as a human being. And I'll always, strive for more success, whether that's personally, musically, whatever it is. It's not like I ever would give any of that up, but I think you have to place things in your life in a place where those things can still happen, but you're not sacrificing your happiness.
Well put.
So
yeah,
that's it.
Jeff, thanks. Appreciate this conversation today.
Chuck. Yeah, thanks. I don't do a lot of these. I'm only saying that because I watched a lot of the other stuff you've done, and I think it's wonderful. I think I appreciate that you choose a wide variety of topics and conversations. That's refreshing and nice. Yeah, and I think you're doing great. And I'll keep listening and watching and all that stuff. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.